The sky over France erupted in violence. A lone P-47 Thunderbolt streaked through scattered clouds, its pilot scanning the horizon with razor-sharp intensity. Robert Johnson knew the Germans were watching. Waiting. It was 1944. The Allied invasion of Europe was underway, and every mission could be a pilot's last. The American fighter squadrons were hunting Nazi aircraft, protecting bomber formations that would strike deep into German-controlled territory. Johnson wasn't just any pilot. At 22 years old, he was already a combat veteran with a reputation for exceptional skill and nerves of steel. His P-47 Thunderbolt was a massive fighter, 8 tons of pure American engineering, bristling with 8.50 caliber machine guns that could tear apart enemy planes in seconds. The Thunderbolt was nicknamed the Jug because of its bulky shape, but what it lacked in elegance, it made up for in pure fighting power. Pilots like Johnson knew this machine could take incredible punishment and still bring them home. On this day, Johnson was escorting a group of B-17 bombers through enemy territory. These massive flying fortress bombers were critical to the Allied strategy. Each one carried thousands of pounds of explosives to destroy German industrial targets. Protecting them was a sacred duty. But the Germans had other plans. Waiting in the clouds was one of their most dangerous pilots, Egon Mayer, known as the Black Devil of the Luftwaffe. Mayer wasn't just another fighter pilot. He was an ace with over 50 confirmed aerial victories, a veteran of combat across multiple fronts. The two pilots represented the best of their respective air forces, Johnson representing the rising power of the United States, Mayer, a seasoned German fighter defending the crumbling Nazi empire. As the bomber formation flew steady, Johnson's eyes constantly moved, scanning left, right, above, watching for any hint of danger. The sky might look peaceful, but it could turn deadly in an instant. Suddenly everything changed. A flash of movement, a glint of metal, the unmistakable shape of a German Focke-Wulf, 190 diving from above. Mayer had found his target. The German fighter rocketed downward, closing the distance in seconds. Johnson's training kicked in. No time to think, only react. His hands moved with practiced precision, banking the massive Thunderbolt, converting altitude into speed, preparing to counter the attack. The two fighters were about to dance a deadly ballet at over 300 miles per hour. This wasn't just a fight, this was a test of skill, of reflexes, of who could think and move faster than death itself. Mayer's reputation preceded him. The Black Devil had shot down dozens of Allied pilots. He wasn't just hunting Mayer's play, he was hunting with surgical precision. Johnson knew one mistake meant certain death. The sky would decide who survived. The Focke-Wulf 190 screamed downward, Mayer's hands steady on the controls. His eyes were ice-cold calculations, measuring distance, angle, speed. Every movement was a mathematical precision, learned through years of combat. Johnson yanked his P-47 into a hard defensive turn, G-forces pressing him into his seat. The Thunderbolt responded like a living thing, massive but surprisingly agile. His thumb hovered near the gun trigger, waiting for the perfect moment. Mayer was already anticipating the Americans' move. He'd seen this dance countless times before. Young pilots always tried the same desperate defensive maneuvers, but he was different. He was patient, calculating. The two aircraft twisted through the sky, a complex aerial choreography at nearly 400 miles per hour. Each pilot knew that a single miscalculation meant instant death. Thousands of feet above the cloud-covered European landscape, this was a duel that would be decided in seconds. Johnson's radio crackled. Another American fighter in his squadron was calling out a warning, but he was already fully committed. His entire world had narrowed to this single moment, this single opponent. Mayer's gers tensed on the Focke-Wulf's controls. He'd positioned himself perfectly, just slightly above and behind Johnson's aircraft, the classic attack position, the kill position. His cannon and machine guns were primed. One sustained burst would tear the American fighter to pieces. But Johnson wasn't a typical pilot. His reputation wasn't built on luck, but on an almost supernatural situational awareness. Just as Mayer prepared to fire, the Thunderbolt suddenly rolled, presenting an impossible targeting solution. The German ace's first burst missed by mere feet. Johnson's counterattack was instantaneous. The P-47's 8.50 caliber machine guns erupted in a thunderous roar. Tracer rounds streaked across the sky, creating a devastating fan of firepower. Mayer felt his aircraft shudder. Some rounds had struck home. The battle had truly begun. Each pilot represented more than just themselves. Johnson carried the hopes of a nation just entering the war's most critical phase. Mayer represented the fading glory of a regime that had dominated Europe, but was now being pushed back on all fronts. Their personal skills would determine not just their survival, but potentially the outcome of entire missions. The bomber formation Johnson was protecting carried explosives that could cripple German industrial capacity. If those bombers got through, they would deal a devastating blow to the Nazi war machine. Mayer knew this. Johnson knew this. The sky became their battlefield, clouds their cover, speed their primary weapon. Another violent maneuver, another near miss. The two fighters twisted and turned, each seeking that perfect moment of vulnerability. Combat at this level wasn't just about reflexes, it was about prediction. Understanding your opponent's psychology, knowing not just what they might do but what they were thinking. Mayer had 50 confirmed victories. He'd seen every trick, survived every potential death scenario. His nickname, the Black Devil, wasn't just propaganda, it was earned through ruthless efficiency. But Johnson represented something new. The American military was learning quickly, adapting faster than the Germans anticipated. Young pilots like him weren't just following old European combat doctrines, they were creating something entirely different. Aggressive, unpredictable, technologically advanced. The P-47 Thunderbolt itself was a testament to this new approach. Not elegant, but brutally effective. A flying tank that could absorb punishment and dish it out with equal intensity. Their dogfight continued, a blur of metal and speed against the pale European sky. The bomber formation continued its steady path below, unaware of the life and death struggle happening above their protective shield. Every second was a calculation, every movement a potential death sentence. Who would survive? The seasoned German ace or the young American fighter pilot? The sky would decide. The dance continued, a deadly ballet of steel and determination. Mayer's Focke-Wulf suddenly dropped altitude, using a classic Luftwaffe evasion technique. But Johnson anticipated. His P-47 matched the movement with mechanical precision, closing the distance. 2 rounds struck Mayer's right wing. Warning lights flickered across his instrument panel. He knew in that moment something fundamental had changed. This wasn't just a dogfight, this was a transition of power. The old guard versus the new. European aerial combat doctrine versus American improvisation. Johnson's approach was different. Where European pilots saw rigid formations and calculated risks, he saw fluid opportunity. Where Mayer saw a battle, Johnson saw a dynamic problem to be solved. Another burst from the Thunderbolt. More damage. Mayer's aircraft was bleeding hydraulic fluid. His controls were becoming sluggish. The mathematical precision that had dared his 50 previous victories was dissolving. He made a critical decision. Survival over glory. With remarkable discipline, Mayer banked hard, preparing an emergency retreat. His ego demanded engagement, but his training demanded survival. A wounded fighter helps no one. Johnson could have pursued, could have added another victory to his growing legend. He didn't. Instead he watched, observed, respected. Their brief encounter represented something larger than 2 individual pilots. It was a microcosm of a war transforming itself. Technology, strategy, human potential. As Mayer's damaged aircraft disappeared into distant cloud cover, Johnson rejoined the bomber formation. His mission wasn't about personal triumph, but protection, preservation. The bombers continued their steady path toward strategic German industrial targets. Each mile represented potential liberation, potential hope. Moments like these invisible to history books, determined entire war trajectories, not grand speeches, not political declarations, but individual human choices made in split seconds, thousands of feet above battlegrounds. Johnson's hands remained steady on the controls, his eyes scanned constantly, no celebration, no dramatic gesture, just mission focus. As sunset painted the European sky in deep oranges and muted crimsons, the formation pressed onward. Another day of incremental progress toward a conflict's conclusion. Years later, Veterans would struggle to explain these moments, how split-second decisions carried global implications, how individual human choices echoed across generations. Some stories get told, some fade, some transform into legend. The stories of aerial combat during World War II represent more than technological conflicts. They represent humanity's capacity for extraordinary decision-making under unimaginable pressure. These pilots, regardless of nationality, embodied something profound: the ability to remain human while operating in decidedly inhuman circumstances. If these lost stories of courage continue to resonate with you, explore more forgotten narratives of human resilience. Some memories deserve to be remembered. Our understanding of heroism evolves. These aerial encounters weren't just military engagements. They were profound human dramas played out against an innate canvas of sky and possibility. Pilots like Johnson and Mayer represented more than their uniforms or national identities. They were philosophers of survival, strategists of momentum, architects of impossible choices. In the decades following the war, many would attempt to romanticize these moments, sanitize